So there I was, standing at the edge of my own land, watching Rebecca Whitmore's $220,000 wedding tent sway in the breeze like it belonged to some royal entourage. Music blasted from oversized speakers while guests in stiletto heels stomped over my soybean sprouts. And to top it all off, her caterer had the nerve to ask if I could move my tractor because it was ruining the aesthetic. That's when I calmly flipped the switch, and the manure spreaders roared to life. Smash cut to intro screen. How did it come to this? Let's rewind a bit. I'm Sheriff Daniel Harper of a quiet county nestled in the Appalachian foothills. This is the kind of place where winding back roads snake through thick forests and people still wave when they pass by, even if they don't like you. I spent 2 decades in the military before returning home to care for my father after his first stroke. He passed last spring and left me the land and the hunting lodge he'd built with his own hands over 30 years. He used to call that lodge his cathedral. And standing there now, surrounded by pine and peace, I finally understood what he meant. It wasn't just timber and nails. It was a legacy, a monument to family, to resilience, and to the code he raised me by: patience, grit, and keeping your boots clean even when the world is covered in filth. Enter Caroline Templeton, self-declared president of the Oak Ridge Homeowners Association, fresh off a divorce and looking for a new hill to conquer. She dressed like a Pottery Barn catalog from 2005 and drove an imported SUV that probably couldn't handle a puddle. Her belief? Any problem could be solved with a form, a fine, or a fake smile. I'd seen her around back when she was playing housewife in the cul-de-sac near my property. I didn't think much of her until she decided that my father's lodge was an eyesore threatening community cohesion. Here's the kicker. My lodge sits just outside HOA boundaries, literally 10 feet beyond their imaginary jurisdiction. It's never been under HOA control. But that didn't stop Caroline from showing up one Saturday morning, clipboard in hand, like she was Moses delivering commandments. I was replacing a storm shutter when I heard heels crunching on gravel. I turned to see her standing there like she owned the horizon. "Hi there," she chirped, completely ignoring the fact she was trespassing. "I'm Caroline, president of the Oak Ridge HOA. We've had a few complaints about your structure." She said structure like it was a dirty word. I wiped my hands on a rag. "You mean the family lodge?" She gave me that tight, practiced smile. "Yes, well, the logs are untreated, and your woodpile is visible from the road. It doesn't match the community's aesthetic." I glanced behind her. There wasn't a house in sight for half a mile. "You mean the raccoons community?" That didn't go over well. She handed me a stapled packet outlining HOA guidelines. Section 8, Structure Visibility, Landscaping Color Palettes. "I'm not in the HOA," I said. "You're adjacent," she snapped. "That impacts visual harmony and property values." I told her the land had been in my family since 1952. The lodge predated her subdivision, and unless her bylaws were signed by God himself, they didn't apply to me. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The following week, signs popped up. Private HOA access only. Laminated, staked, even branded with a fake Oak Ridge logo. One blocked my hiking trail. Another covered my dad's old "Welcome to Pine Ridge" sign. I pulled them all and burned them in my fire pit. Next morning, they were back. Then came the fines, mailed in white envelopes, marked with her HOA letterhead. Violation, unauthorized structure. Violation, unapproved fire pit. Violation, wildlife attractant for leaving out corn for deer. I sent a cease and desist citing property law, zoning boundaries, and HOA jurisdiction. She forwarded my infractions to the local utility company. Power was cut. No storms. Just gone. Complaint filed. Safety hazard. Immediate risk. It took land deeds and legal documents to get my power turned back on. Now it was personal. I started collecting, building a case. Letters, fines, photos, neighbor testimonies. Still, I hoped she'd get bored and move on. Then one morning, I found contractor trash dumped in the creek behind my shed. Drywall, paint cans, old siding. I cleaned it up, reported it, and decided to post a massive wooden sign. Private land. No entry. Violators will be prosecuted. Next day, it was replaced with a plastic one. Future site of Oak Ridge Nature Park. Sponsored by your HOA. That's when I realized this wasn't just ego. It was a land grab. Then came the wedding tent. No permission. Just trucks and tents. Caterers and florists rolled onto my property, claiming county approval. Stakes were hammered into my field, carpets unrolled across soybeans, and white chairs were arranged like we were in some Pinterest fantasy. Then the caterer asked me to move my John Deere. I flipped the switch. Manure spreaders roared. That went viral. But while the internet laughed, I got a call from the fire department. A blaze near the lodge. I didn't need sirens or smoke signals. I knew. By the time I arrived, the lodge was gone. Ashes. Blackened timber. The chimney stood alone like a headstone. I tasted smoke and rage. Firefighters found a gas can. And boot prints, tactical tread, size 8 or 9. Not mine, but I knew who wore them. Caroline Templeton. Seen 2 days earlier haggling over camo boots at the Army surplus store. She didn't even wear a mask. Cameras caught everything. Wildlife cams I'd installed after the utility stunt. Clouds synced. She poured gas. Liahag. Watched the flames. That should have been it. But I didn't arrest her. Not yet. Instead, I gathered more purchase records, gas station footage, neighbor testimonies. Learned the HOA charter was never filed with the county. Learned she forged resignations of the board and ran her little empire unchecked. Why burn the lodge? Her niece told me. Caroline wanted to build a wellness retreat. A spa. A park. My land was the last obstacle. She thought fire would scare me off. Instead, it gave me everything I needed. Then she filed paperwork, annexing my land as HOA property. Her final mistake. I filed the charges: arson, fraud, harassment, impersonation. I coordinated with neighbors. The ones she bullied. They showed up when we served the warrant. She was mid-sentence at a yard meeting when I called her name. Caroline Templeton. She turned. Smugness turned to panic. You can't arrest me. I'm the president. Not anymore. The footage played in court. Her lighting the fire. Her smile in the flames. She got 5 years probation, mandatory community service, and had to pay over $800,000 in restitution. Insurance doesn't cover intentional arson. I sued civilly too. 1. Her HOA charter declared invalid. Every fake fine and threat nullified. Her mansion sold. The community? They threw a barbecue. No rules. No fees. Just neighbors. As for the lodge, I rebuilt it. Fireproof. Solar panels. Reinforced. A new sign out front. Pine Ridge Lodge. Templeton proof since 2024. And Caroline? Community service. Scrubbing park restrooms she once tried to claim as hers. Teenagers filmed her. One shouted, "Aren't you the lady who burned down a forest?" These days, I spend my mornings on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the fog roll through the trees. Peaceful. Finally. And when new folks move in and ask what happened to the HOA, I smile, point to the hills, and say, let's just say they picked the wrong land to mess with. Then I offer them coffee. No rules. No fees. No forms. Just neighbors. The way it should be.